Cougar fans, use this radio station tomorrow morning for important news updates. Listen to Utah's most important radio station tomorrow morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back into Cougar Nation here on KSL News Radio, your legacy home of the BYU Cougars. Hey, get ready for an early wake-up call this Saturday. BYU and Baylor, 10 a.m. kick, 8 a.m. pregame with Greg Hands and crew in Waco. I'll be down there in Waco as well at McLean Stadium. Are you one that believes in the whole vampire Coug theory,
Yes,
Matt, that
I
BYU is a different team in the day compared to what they are at night?
I absolutely believe that. The stats back that up. And then if you just look at the way they go about their lives day to day, everything is in the afternoon and at night. Mm-hmm. We are creatures of habit, and our routines dictate a lot of how we feel, how we act, and how we perform. And this program is set to function in the evening.
Yeah.
So it is hard. I'm a morning person. So if you expect me to do my best work at 10 p.m. at night, it's just not going to happen for me. I'm barely keeping my eyelids open at 10 p.m. on most nights. I'm a morning guy. Other people, though, they can't wake up for anything. They're night owls, and they produce at night. I think you're this way. You're a night owl.
I love to stay up late, yes.
Okay. This program is designed around evening work. That's how it's been for years. Hard to flip that to the morning. Now, last year's performance against Oklahoma, that does give me some hope and optimism. That was an early game. They played pretty well. Besides some back-breaking turnovers, I think they exceeded everyone's expectations in that time slot. They can win, but I certainly think this team is better at night.
BYU has lost their last 10 games against FBS opponents that are afternoon games or morning games.
Yikes.
Lost their last 10.
That's a long streak, Mitch. That's longer than the Utah winning streak was.
So last year they were 0-5 in afternoon and morning games. So they got us a chance to end that streak. I do get a little bit worried about that. I mean, maybe it's just a media concoction, and it's just
not though. You look at the body of work.
That's what I'm saying. You just look at the trends, and when you just see how awesome, like when the Kansas State kick time got announced at 8:30, that honestly helped my belief in an upset, because we have seen BYU in late night spots is just brilliant at home. They are outstanding in those spots. And the atmosphere at LaVell Edwards Stadium, it's just remarkable. And I will just note, too, when going back to the atmosphere, it is amazing how much it's changed, because 20 years ago, this wasn't a thing.
10 years ago, it wasn't a thing.
Yeah, it was not like this. The whole production, the
rock.
There's always something going on that keeps people's attention going, and I think that helps the cause. It's just been interesting because I've gone to SMU, terrible in-game production. There's no juice at all in that game day experience. Wyoming, well, there was no expectation, so it was still kind of okay, but it was Wyoming. Oklahoma State I thought was pretty cool. It was rainy, but it really stands out, and it's you've noticed on social media and some of the reaction from visiting fans that what BYU does is really standing out, and I think that's important going forward. Whatever the next iteration of college football ends up being, I hope it's just, hey, the Big 12 works, and it's working great for everyone involved, but I think it's great that you're building an identity of, man, that game day atmosphere is elite, and you want to just have that elite atmosphere carry over, though, to morning games, because in this league, you will get some morning kicks because you got Central Time Zone teams, you got Eastern Time Zone teams, and sometimes they'll throw an Eastern Time Zone team in Utah at 10 a.m. if the TV networks demand it. So BYU's got to be ready. John Nelson said today that it'll be about a 6 a.m. wake-up call. So for a group that typically practices in the afternoon, they get their lift in around 8 a.m., 9 a.m.-ish, better be ready to get ready to go for a road game against Baylor, who you are better than. It's just deliver and perform at the level that you're capable of, and I think BYU will win this game. It's just you got to, business as usual for this BYU team.
It's still college football. I think that's the thing, is even some of the great teams can struggle from week to week. Earlier this year, Georgia almost coughed one up in Lexington at Kentucky. They're a much better team than the Wildcats were. So anyone can beat anyone, especially in the Big 12 right now, where there is tremendous parity in this league. So, yeah, you have to be ready. It's going to be a challenge. And this is truly, Mitch, a trap game. Like, you look on paper, BYU looks to be better, but you could find yourself on the wrong end if you don't come correct.
3147, you can text us 57500. A game capitalizing, or they haven't had a game capitalizing on opponents' mistakes. While good, does not mean the team is ready for prime time. I don't think that they are a top 25 team
I totally
yet.
disagree with that.
Yeah, I disagree too. I mean, they had a win over a really good Kansas State program.
Kansas State is a good football team, and I don't like the narrative that, oh, great, you capitalized on the mistakes. They forced the mistakes.
Right.
They made the plays. On the interceptions, there was a blitz package where they dropped Batty back that confused Avery Johnson and made him throw the football early. So that was BYU's defense making the play. On the play where Harrison Taggart intercepted it, Batty ran a stunt up the middle and forced a errant throw. So that's not just capitalizing on mistakes. They forced the mistakes.
And, again, Kansas State, that's not who they are.
No, they're a good football team.
You got to give credit to BYU for creating those mistakes. 3166 says, just don't blow it. Like they do every year, BYU always gets in the top 25 for starting out strong. Then they go on a losing streak. I won't believe this is real until they prove me wrong. That's fair because the last 2 years, BYU has had losing streaks of 4 games in 2022. That was with Jaron Hall. Last year, they had a 5-game skid. So BYU has got to show that they've always shown under Kalani they can start a season strong.
This game is so fascinating this week against Baylor because these are the type of games in previous years that they lose. And then you say to yourself, I got hyped up, and they're not as good as I thought. And so that can either happen again, and it can become an 11-game day streak that you keep losing and you're not ready to meet the moment, or if they win this game, it doesn't have to be in convincing fashion. Just a win is good enough.
Yeah.
You really start to feel like this team is different. And then you look ahead. You get the week off to break. Then you come home. Arizona, beatable. Oklahoma State, beatable. You could be looking at no losses or 1 loss going to the rivalry
Any game in Provo, BYU's got a great chance. And they should honestly be a favorite.
Yep.
Because Provo is dynamite atmosphere. BYU can win any game on their schedule. I keep going to that. And I just think that, and one thing that we got to rewire our minds to, don't get worried about style points. That doesn't matter anymore. BYU, when they were an independent, sure, that mattered. When they were a Mountain West team, sure, that mattered. Now, just win the ball game. If it's 3-0 this week against Baylor, great. You got to win. Just find a way to get the win. Get out, get in there, go get the win. Because I bet it'll be a little bit ugly at times. Baylor's got talent. They got athletes. They've recruited the state of Texas. Dave Aranda, though, is on the hot seat. And this could be a do-or-die game for him. And maybe the response from Baylor after a devastating overtime loss to Colorado this past week, where Colorado completes a Hail Mary at the final horn at regulation to send it into OT. If Baylor doesn't have any energy, BYU could, roll in this game. But if they have some fight for Dave Aranda and they want to save his job, that could be a tough spot for BYU. But, BYU is a team that I think is going to be, they're not going to get blown out. No. I don't believe that. I think it's just going to be, there might be stretches where, okay, the offense isn't humming, but just face the adversity and keep pushing through and find a way to make the necessary plays at the end of the ball game to go get that win.
394. My hopes are up. The offense must continue to improve. Mazel tov to Retzlaff and company. Yeah, the offense does need to improve, but I think they have shown signs for 3 straight weeks that they are improving. Really curious to see how Sione Iamoa follows up that performance, because if he can give you another 80 to 100 yards, a touchdown run, you have some time of possession, that goes a long way to making this a more winnable game.
Cougar Nation sponsored by Central Bank. If you missed any part of the program, subscribe to the podcast on any podcasting platform and go to the KSL Sports app. We'll talk to you next week on Cougar Nation to break down the Baylor game and look ahead to the bye week. It's Cougar Nation here on KSL News Radio.